The doctor's words were a death sentence for a dream. 0% chance. 2 words that had echoed in her soul for years. A final clinical judgment on her broken body. She and her husband had endured a decade of invasive treatments, crushing disappointments, and a grief that was invisible to the world. But a mysterious stranger's prophecy, delivered in the hushed, sacred quiet of a hospital chapel, was about to become a divine message that would defy all medical science and turn a story of barrenness into a story of impossible abundance. This is the true story of a miracle that proves when doctors give a prognosis, God can offer a prophecy, and His word is always the final one. Her name was Elena, and her deepest desire, the prayer that she had carried since she was a young girl, was to be a mother. But her body had betrayed that dream. A diagnosis of severe infertility had sent her and her husband, David, on a painful 10-year odyssey through the world of modern medicine. They had poured their savings, their emotions, and their youth into every conceivable treatment, each one ending in failure. The emotional toll was immense. Each month was a cycle of fragile hope followed by devastating loss. The world seemed full of pregnant women and happy families, each one a painful reminder of what she could not have. Her faith was stretched to the breaking point. How could a loving God deny the most natural, heartfelt desire of her spirit? The stakes were not just about having a child, they were about the survival of her hope, the very foundation of her belief in a benevolent universe. After their final, most expensive treatment failed, they were given the definitive prognosis. "It's over," the specialist told them, his voice laced with clinical pity. "There is nothing more we can do. There is a 0% chance you will ever conceive naturally." The words hung in the sterile air of the examination room, cold and sharp and final. David was strong, but Elena shattered. She found her way to the small, quiet chapel tucked away in a corner of the hospital. It was a place she had avoided, a place that felt like it was for people with prayers that were actually answered. She sat in a wooden pew, the air still and smelling of old hymnals and quiet desperation. And she did not pray. She simply wept, a deep, silent weeping for a death that had no funeral, the death of her most cherished dream. As she sat there, a woman she had never seen before entered the chapel and sat beside her. She was an older woman, a hospital janitor by her uniform, with kind, knowing eyes. She placed a gentle hand on Elena's shoulder. "Do not cry, my child," the woman whispered, her voice warm and steady. "God is giving you too for your trouble." Elena looked up, startled. The words were so specific, so strange. The woman smiled a peaceful, radiant smile, patted her hand, and then quietly stood up and left the chapel. Elena never saw her again. The encounter was bizarre, and in her grief, she quickly dismissed it. It was probably just a kind, if eccentric, old woman trying to offer comfort. A few weeks passed. Elena and David began the painful process of accepting a life without children. They started to talk about other options, other ways to build a family, but their hearts were still raw with grief. Then something strange happened. Elena felt different. The familiar symptoms of her monthly cycle were absent. It was impossible, she told herself. It was a cruel trick of a mind desperate for a miracle. But after another week, David convinced her to take a home pregnancy test, just to rule it out, just to close the door on that sliver of impossible hope. When the test stick showed 2 bright pink lines, they stared at it in stunned disbelief. It had to be a mistake, a false positive. They went to the doctor, the same specialist who had delivered the 0% verdict, and prepared for another disappointment. As the doctor performed the ultrasound, a deep professional silence filled the room. He stared at the screen, his face a mask of utter confusion. The feeling was electric, a mixture of terror and wild, untamable hope. Elena gripped David's hand, her knuckles white. Finally, the doctor turned the screen toward them, his voice barely a whisper. I don't know how to explain this, he stammered. There's a heartbeat. The joy that erupted in Elena's heart was so powerful it felt like it could tear her apart. But the doctor wasn't finished. He moved the ultrasound wand. And, he said, his voice cracking with emotion, there's another one. 2 heartbeats, 2 perfect, healthy babies, twins. The mysterious woman's prophecy echoed in Elena's mind. God is giving you 2 for your trouble. This story is a profound demonstration of the divine message framework. The communication from God did not come through a burning bush or a booming voice. It came through the humble whisper of a hospital janitor, an angel in a blue uniform. This was a direct spiritual interaction, a moment where the divine realm intersected with the physical world to deliver a message of hope so powerful it literally rewrote reality. Medical science, with all its knowledge and technology, could only see the brokenness. It could only measure the physical limitations and declare a 0% chance. But the prophecy operated on a higher plane of truth. It did not predict a possibility. It declared a reality. It was a creative word, a divine decree that called into existence something that did not exist. This is the essence of a miracle. It is not a suspension of the laws of nature, but an intervention from a higher set of laws, the laws of faith, hope, and divine possibility. For a decade, Elena's faith had been tested in the fire. Her story reminds us that even when our prayers seem to be met with silence, God is working. His plan is unfolding on a timeline we cannot see. The 10 years of suffering were not a denial, but a preparation. It was a process that emptied her of her own strength and her own plans, making room for a miracle that was bigger and more beautiful than anything she could have achieved on her own. Her barrenness became the fertile ground for an impossible blessing. Your 0% chance may not be infertility. It may be a financial crisis, a broken relationship, or a terminal diagnosis. But the message of Elena's story is universal. When the world and its experts tell you that something is impossible, remember that you serve a God for whom all things are possible. The prophecy you need may come from the most unexpected source. A stranger's kind word, a line in a book, a whisper in your heart. Be open, be listening, for your trouble, for your tears, for your faith that has been stretched but never broken. God may be preparing to give you double. If this story of a miraculous prophecy touches your heart, consider following for more powerful testimonies of God's ability to turn impossibility into reality.